On the 9th of June, Frontline Socialist Party organized a protest campaign in front of the US Embassy at Colombo. The aim of the protest was to condemn the murder of George Floyd, condemn racism and discrimination.
We organized this protest campaign in front of the US Embassy to condemn the brutal murder of George Floyd by the US state terrorism. And this is not only a pandemic in United States but all over the world, because in Lankan we have been experiencing this racial violence and racism, nationalism and all sort of religious extremism throughout decades. In the last November, the present regime, they came into power by using this racism and nationalism and religious extremism. So it matters us.
On previous day, having received the information of the protest to be held, police obtained a court order preventing the protest in front of the US Embassy in Colombo.
ආඥාව ඊ දවසේදී මේ සංවිධානය කරපු ලබන සංවිධානයේ ආයත බාර දීලා තිනවා. එසේ බාරලා දීලා තින බව දැනගෙනම ඒ අධිකරණ නියෝගය නොතකා හරිමින් අද දවසේ මේ උද්ඝෝෂණයට ඔවුන් සහභාගී වන අවස්ථාවේදී
The magistrate order nominated 2 Central Committee members of the Frontline Socialist Party, but none of them, neither the party office close to Colombo, received any proscription order. However, the leaders of the Frontline Socialist Party, considering the situation, waited until the members to arrive at the agreed Kolupitiya roundabout, 400 meters away from the embassy. None of them were at the embassy when a group of police assaulted the gathering and arrested 22 of the crowd gathered at a bus stop, including members of FLSP. Elderly women were pushed to ground during the attack. The lawyers who demanded reason of arresting were also taken to custody.
Actually, the organizers scheduled this particular protest in front of American Embassy. However, there was some news from media that the police had obtained a court order staying this particular protest in front of American Embassy. Subsequently, the organizers, I think they wanted to change the place by obeying that particular order. Then they have changed their place of protest to town hall. However, few people who got the message that this particular protest was they are going to schedule in front of the American Embassy, without knowing the fact that the place had been changed, they came near Kolpiti to attend this particular protest. However, the police blatantly attacked these people and they arrested all these around 10 to 15 people in front of Liberty Plaza building in Kolpiti. So actually I was informed there is a police blatantly attacking these peaceful people. Then I decided to involve in this, and actually I went to Kolpiti to appear on their behalf and asking police on what basis they are going to arrest these people. But the police, without inquiring anything from me, and another lawyer, lady lawyer was also there, actually these people informed her to come and appear on their behalf, but without take cognizance of anything on what basis these people are there, these lawyers are there. Police blatantly attacked all the people and arrested them.
After a discussion amongst the organizers, it was decided to shift the protest campaign to the Lipton Circus, where no court order is taken prescribing protests. There, the protesters, having adhered to the health precautions, initiated the protest campaign. It was a silent protest. The government authorities have ordered to invade the protesters in this peaceful campaign.
ප්‍රගතිශීලී ජනතාවත් එක්ක ඒකරාශී වෙලා
After the brutal attack by the police, they produced us to the court. And even though we don't have enough confidence in the judiciary system in Lanka, there was an interesting discussion occurred. The police misused the court order. In that discussion, it says that a court order can be used only if the people violate the conditions of the court order. But what the police did was, they acted alone, and they tried to manipulate the court order by implementing the court order before violating the court order by the people or the protesters. So that discussion was a serious point highlighted in the courtroom. And on the other hand, after the denial, because the police wanted send us to quarantine, but the judge refused it, and all we were released on bail.
The attacks on women and the abductions are clearly criminal offences.
What was particularly disturbing about the police response on that day was the way that they handled the protesters, especially the women who were present there. There are images from that protest of a young woman being thrown into a police jeep by male police officers, of older women being thrown to the ground, of being handled by male police officers, which is an incorrect thing to do even legally. But on the whole, it shows a kind of the kind of violence and the kind of excessive use of force, which ironically this protest was actually about. This protest was about the excessive use of police force, which resulted in the death of a human being in the USA. But the response of the Sri Lankan police also showed that this is not just an issue that is confined to the USA, that this is very much an issue for Sri Lanka as well, where we have had a long history of of torture and excessive force used by the police.
The police unlawfully apprehended 53 protesters, including 8 females.
Firstly, there was an argument that during a pandemic time there were certain quarantine laws were enforced, and the protesters should not have been there, should not have protested. Well, what we have to look at in this particular incident, it was clearly evident that the protesters were in numbers, they were not huge, and also they were maintaining the social distance that is required by the law. Until the police came and disrupted the whole protest, they were perfectly peaceful, and there was no reason for the police to use excessive power to disperse them or arrest them, or also to apprehend them. Secondly, there was apparently a court order, and the court order prohibited any sort of protest at that particular area. What was also evident was it was not only in the area specified by the court order, but also outside that area also the police actually arrested people, apprehended them, and brutally used excessive power to bring them under control. Nonetheless, as a democratic nation, we citizens of this country should always make sure that we exercise our democratic rights to express, rights to make our opinion known to the public.
The magistrate rejected a request by the police to remand the detainees for 2 weeks. Next request by the police was to send them to quarantine for 2 weeks.
In Sri Lanka, we are having a quarantine act. Somebody can say it as a quarantine law. The power goes to the Director General of Health Services, or DGHS in Sri Lanka. As a person, Dr. Anil Jasing is having the power. But to be honest in the practice, the power is applying by the particular doctors and particular public health inspectors. So according to the act, if you want to send somebody to the quarantine process, decision has to be taken by that particular doctor or by that particular public health inspector on behalf of the Director General Health Services. So according to the act, there is no quarantine powers goes to the courts or the security personnel. So police has no power to take decision on quarantine processes initiation. So clearly we can say power is only applies to the health personnel only on behalf of the DGHS in Sri Lanka. Police, courts, army personnel or any security personnel, even the Prime Minister and the President has no power to decide to send somebody to quarantine process.
What is the message of this attack on protesters and the malicious behavior of the police? What has the government shown by this incident?
Everybody watched on television how the police brutally attacked the protesters. They acted as thugs, not kind of an official police force. They acted with the motivation of political hierarchy. Definitely the President himself and the Secretary of Defense, they ordered to suppress the attacks by any means. So that was the order the police force got at the outset. Now, when we consider about the way they attack the protesters, it means that they give a kind of a message to the masses that they are going to suppress any kind of future protest or struggles the same manner, because they are in a great trouble in terms of economy. The government, the capitalist system in Lanka, in great trouble in terms of economy. Before the pandemic situation, before the coronavirus situation, we know that the Lankan state was indebted 13 trillion rupees. It means each person, each citizen in Lanka indebted 600,000 rupees. That is the reality. So due to the corona pandemic situation, the far-deepened crisis is on the way. So it means they want to grab the political power as soon as possible. That's why they try to hold the election as soon as possible. The election is now already been scheduled on the 5th of August. So they want to use all their political powers to suppress all the struggles and protests in the future. As we already know, in Europe, in United States, United Kingdom and around the world, there was a huge economic crisis. There's a great economic crisis, and International Monetary Fund, World Bank and all other financial institutions in the world, they have revealed the facts and details about the crisis we are heading towards. Before this crisis situation, before this pandemic situation, we have noticed in Europe and some other countries there were a number of neo-fascist tendencies emerged, and some of the governments turned their policies into nationalist basis. In United States, in United Kingdom, we saw that. So the economic crisis, as we know, the economic crisis definitely turn into a political crisis. It means there is a fight to establish democracy not only in Lanka but also everywhere in the world, all over the world. That is the reality. It means this struggle, what we are proposing to establish democracy in Lanka, to fight against all sort of racism and all sort of nationalism and religious extremism in Lanka is not a Lankan matter, but it is a global phenomena. Therefore, we should join hand with all the progressive forces in the world, all the leftist forces in the world, all the anti-imperialist forces in the world, and all the democratic forces in the world to establish a better world.